Hey, I'm Supats, lifelong solopreneur. Now living my life with only one passion to help solopreneurs to launch their digital products on fast track so that they can be profitable as fast as within 1 week, and they want to scale, they can join the membership. And as a bonus, I show them how they can sell their digital products all over the world using affiliates. Without further delay, let's get started. Welcome to New Beginning Inspiration for You podcast. And I have been interviewing lots of guests on my podcast, and many times the guest I interview for my community, for my audience. But sometimes I come across with a guest and I look at the profile and then I want to know, oh my goodness, I want to know everything what he's doing, because that is what happened when I came across Michael Harris's profile. He is four-time best-selling author. Then he is a great storyteller. And there are so many factors. I just don't want to go into details of that because I want him to uncover all those topics to you. And then I said, okay, this interview is going to be for me because I want to learn all these things from him and I want to implement in my life, in my business. So without further delay, let me invite Michael Harris. Michael, welcome to New Beginning Inspiration for You podcast. Stage is all yours.
Sue, it's so wonderful to be here. And when you first contacted me about being on the show, and I looked at what you're doing, it was just like, I got to meet this lady. I got to meet this woman, and because you are doing so much. You're talking about me. I mean, I look at what you're doing for entrepreneurs and small business people, and everything from Canva templates to AI info. You have a show back in September that was, I mean, December that was too, you think you're too old to start a business. It's just like, I love everything that you're doing and I can't wait to even dive in more. So thank you, Sue,
Thank you. I
for
really appreciate you. Now,
inviting me
I have
on
written
your
three
show.
books, but I haven't published a single one. And you are four-time best-selling author, so I want to learn from you because I'm just stuck over there. I'm just forwarding my manuscript to people to read and give me feedback. I haven't gotten any constructive feedback. Everybody says it is good, 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 and I don't want that kind of feedback. I want someone to give me constructive criticism before I publish it, and that is not happening. That's why I'm stuck. So I will learn from you.
I would be happy to give you my
Oh,
comments and
thank you, thank you.
insights in any way that I
So
can.
I want to ask you,
Yeah.
storytelling. It's so much I hear about it, and I also signed up for a course which I never started it. I should start now. But why everyone has a story to tell, and why it is so important?
Well, I take a look at the history of storytelling. And thousands, maybe even millions of years ago, we would sit around campfires and tell stories. Oh, I went and I got this saber-toothed tiger. You wouldn't believe what happened. And he tried to jump me, but I got him with my spear right at the right time, right in the center of the chest, and on and on and on. And it's really the way that as humans, we communicate with each other and that we connect with each other. There's lots of, I call it swirling energy right now in the world, right? There's a lot of things going on out there. But when we start to sit down and we start to have conversations with each other, we tend to come together a little bit more. And I think the more that we can share our stories and connect with each other, the
Yeah, yeah,
better the
it's
world's going to
absolutely
be.
right. Yesterday we watched Mufasa, the Lion King, and the whole structure, it starts with a
Oh,
story, ends with a story, and And then I was wondering, yes, stories are so important. And I also feel that when you tell story, it's more like your subconscious mind is talking to other person's subconscious mind. And whenever you are telling stories,
Yeah,
it is more like heart to heart talk, because many times the conversation can be just brain to brain, and that may not be that appealing. But when you tell a story, it is heart to heart talk, and I think it is more productive. It is really means either for your life or business, it is way more productive. I really like your approach for stories.
yeah.
And
Mm. Well, I got to tell you, much of what I learned also about story was from your country of origin, India. And I've spent some time in India, and I have many Indian friends. I've actually practiced yoga now for 37 years, and I've taught for about 30 as well. It's one of the things I do. And some of the best storytellers in the world come out of India. And the depth of your culture and the depth of your stories, it's just fascinating. And I've really learned a lot about how to take a story and tell it through your country and your story
that's
and your
absolutely
culture.
right, because I just remember everything what my mom told me in stories. And I think that was the best way for her to
Mhm.
teach me. Because many times, if she had
Yeah,
come directly on me and she said, "Hey, Sue, you don't do like this, you have to do like this," I may not have listened to her, because, as a kid, as a teenager, I think it was like that. Hey, you don't listen to your parents, but if you tell a story, yeah, that makes sense. And then you do follow their instructions. And I don't know, you have been
yeah.
in India, so I don't know whether you know about great king called Shivaji Maharaj. And yeah, if you were in Mumbai, you must have heard about
Uh-huh.
him, because I think there is we have an airport on his name. So his mom
Yep.
actually,
Yep.
she used to tell him stories when he was a kid, and then he, as he grew up, he became a great warrior, great king, and he created empire, and it's a really great story in itself. But he became great warrior and great king only because his mom kept on telling him stories, that okay, this is how the life should be, this is how the people should be treated, and right now there is so much of injustice is happening, so now it is your responsibility to take care of uh, all these people. And
Yeah.
that is how he shaped his life. And I just wanted to ask you, we had a lot of discussion about iPhone today, your iPhone crisis and all. But I also saw there is a, you mentioned
Yeah.
about blackberries in your profile. So the blackberries, is it related to real blackberries,
Uh,
or is it the phone real blackberries, or but how there is a connection of these blackberries with entrepreneurs? Okay.
they are definitely real blackberries. And I was hoping you'd ask me about that, especially on your show where there's so many entrepreneur people here. When I started really studying story, and I went to Marihurst University as well to study storytelling, I never really realized what my first entrepreneurial journey was. I thought it was, I'm thinking as a kid, my first job pumping gas or being a dishwasher at a restaurant. But when I really look back, I went, no, I was an entrepreneur starting at 6 years old. My dad was an entrepreneur. He had his own businesses. And one of the things that he'd always say is find something that people want and sell it to them, be of service to them in that way. So, where do the blackberries fall in? Well, growing up, we had some property and we had a bunch of blackberry bushes, and we'd love to go out there and eat them. We'd take them in, and mom would make pies, and all the neighborhood kids would come over and eat all of Mrs. Harris's blackberry pies because they were the best pies in the neighborhood. Some of them started wanting them to take them home. And I said, Mom, let's make a deal. I said, I'll go pick them all. You bake them. I'll go around the neighborhood and sell them. She said, okay. She says, we're going to split it 50-50. We'll charge $1 to start. You get 50 cents. I get 50 cents. I'll pay for the extra ingredients other than the blackberries out of my cart, but you have to go and sell it. So this is in the 60s, right? So I started going door to door, and I did this thing, and Sue, I'm convinced that the Girl Scouts stole my line because when they
Uh-huh.
when they sell cookies, it's not do you want to buy cookies? It's how many
And
boxes
they're
do you
selling
want
the
to buy,
dream. They are
right?
not selling the
So I
cookies. They
was
are
doing
selling the
that.
dream.
Right. So I would go door to door and ask the neighborhood, the mothers of my friend, how many do you want to buy? Thanksgiving is coming up. You might want an extra pie. So I would go around and sell these pies door to door. So I realized soon that that was my first entrepreneurial journey was
All
selling
right. That is
blackberry
very
pies.
interesting because I heard about the babysitting. I heard about lemonade stand. Hey, but this is different. But yeah, it is really, really
Yep.
great. You know, I found lots of similar things in your story and my story. For example, I was bedridden for whole year, and then I had to get up and I have to start to learn walking again. And I see so many things.
Mm.
I see law of attraction, and that is how I actually fed my mind for 1 year during when I had all this mishap, my spinal cord problems and all, and all those things help. And I see all those things in your profile. So, what would you like to say about how did you start learn to walk again, and what was your situation?
Yeah, great question. And I'll just drop this in briefly, Sue. My late brother Bill, he contributed to The Secret when Rhonda Byrne came out and wanted to do this book. She went to my brother. My brother helped her put it all together and is also one of the authors of the book. The book is about law of attraction. A lot of people throw rocks at the book because that's what people do. But there's really only one thing that I found, and this will relate to your question as well, to make the law of attraction work. And John Assaraf, which many
Oh
people
yeah.
out there know who he is, yeah, came up with the
Hmm.
term of the law of Goya. Well, for the listeners out there, this is really where the law of attraction works. The law of Goya is get off your ass. GOY. You've
Yeah.
absolutely got to take action. You just can't sit there and hope that Aunt Mabel is going to come along and drop 10 million bucks on you or heal your spine or anything else. You have to take action. So in my case in 1986, I showed up at the vascular department of OHSU, Oregon Health Sciences University, and they said I had blocked arteries in my legs. I was 27 years old. My right leg was 100% blocked. My left leg was 65% blocked. My cholesterol was 140, and all my blood panels were normal. So they couldn't figure out why I had atherosclerosis and blocks in my arteries. So they said, we need to do FemPops. Well, FemPops is essentially a bypass surgery on your legs. move the artery, the veins and the arteries around. And so they did this in November of 1986. Next month, I had blood clots. A few months later, my left leg particularly had reblocked and they wanted to do more surgery. And I said, no. I left the hospital, sue what's called AMA, against medical advice. And, they were pretty adamant that I would lose my legs in a few months, that I was going to die, and all this other kind of stuff. Well, this is 1987, so 37, almost 38 years ago, and I'm still alive, and I'm running up and down mountains and ridges, and I can do anything I want. And this is why I mentioned the law of attraction thing first, because I went to another doctor in Southern California. I lived in Oregon and I flew down. I still live in Oregon. And I flew down and he said, just get up and walk. Don't worry about it. And I went, what? The surgeons say, don't walk, if it hurts. And he said, no, get up and walk. So I went from walking about 10 feet on a cane, 27 years old, Sue. I was on a cane, could barely walk. It's like an old man with a cane, right? And he said, get up and walk. So within 2 weeks, I went from walking 10 feet to 2 miles just by applying the law of GOYA. To get off your ass, actually doing something to make the action, to make this law of attraction, this idea of what I wanted to happen. Now, most of that walking, Sue, I will mention, was on the boardwalk between Santa Monica and Marina del Rey. And I had never spent much time on the boardwalk. I didn't live in Southern California, in LA area. But what I noticed too, that there were a lot of attractive women on rollerblades going up and down the boardwalk. I did not want to be the 97-pound weakling, so I stood up tall and, I would walk, it's just like, and I kept doing it, but I'd walk 10 feet. I would sit down on the little brick wall. I'd get up and walk 12 feet. I'd sit down, I'd get up and walk 13 feet. I kept doing it until I
That's really
restored the blood
amazing
flow in my
story.
legs.
You mentioned John Ashraf, and that's actually 1 year I told you when I was bedridden. My day started watching his movie The Secret.
Mhm.
Every day I woke up and I watched that movie.
Oh,
And so that's the law of attraction, and means
The
I just
Secret?
fed my mind with the positive thing. So and now I'm part of his community, I'm part of his inner size. I'm affiliate, I'm his community, I'm part of his
Oh, that's
community. I
wonderful.
totally vouch whatever work he's doing. It's really amazing. And second thing you mentioned about the surgery, I can relate to that too, because my doctor's advice was to go through surgery for my spinal cord, and I was totally against it because
Mm,
to her is human. If they do one mistake, I will be bedridden my whole life. I didn't want
mm,
anyone to be touching my spine, so I said no. I'm not going to go through surgery. And
yeah,
then I took means basically alternate care like physiotherapy, chiropractor, various things. I kept on doing that, so eventually I recovered. So yeah, means I can relate to you. I never knew that you refused surgery, and now I know even I refuse surgery. My goodness, if I keep on talking, I'll find so many common
yeah,
things, and it's really, really interesting. So
yeah. And did you know about
no,
Joe
I would like to
Dispenza's
know.
story? Dr. Joe Dispenza, briefly, he was in his 20s many years ago. He was a bike racer and he got clipped from behind on his bike by a truck and broke his spine in 4 different places. And basically, I mean, his thinking was if all this stuff is true and we can heal ourselves, then I'm going to try it.
Oh yeah.
They wanted to put rods and I think it's called a harbinger surgery, if I'm correct. I may not be correct on that name. And he sat around for 12 weeks in meditation, visualizing his spine being healthy, never had a problem again.
Wow.
That's Dr. Joe Dispenza.
This
I'm
is
sure
totally
many of
inspiring.
your
My
listeners know
goodness.
who he
So
is as well.
it does work.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Totally inspiring. So I
yeah.
wanted to ask you, you talk about monkeys, and I know about the monkey mind, and because I'm very much into spirituality, and it talks about monkey mind because it is chattering all the
Sure,
time and all those things. So I want to know about what is monkey mind in your perspective, and how can we calm that?
sure. Well, I had a big aha moment actually in Agra. We're going to visit the Taj Mahal there, and we were staying at the Taj Palace. And um, up to this point, you know, I would get the what's people refer to as the monkey mind, and certainly I would have it too. And for so long, I would feed them bananas, to help calm it down and go, oh, I'm just going to give them bananas, and it would seem to work. They would come into my mind would swirl, I'd give it bananas, and it would be okay. Well, you may be quite familiar with this, but at the hotel that we were staying at, it was a couple of stories, and there was balconies and sliding glass doors and all that. And I'm not sure exactly what they're called. Maybe they're called the monkey tenders or something. There was the people walking around the grounds with big bamboo stick trying to chase the monkeys away. What are they called, Sue? Is
Mm,
there a name for them?
I'm not sure. Sorry.
Not sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But they would go around. I mean, they were long, 12, 14-foot bamboo sticks. They were pretty long. But the monkeys would climb up the balconies on the outside of the hotel and go up. And in the wisdom of the hotel, they would have a big bowl filled with fruit, oranges, bananas, apples, mangoes, whatever was in the bowls. So if you know monkeys like fruit, right? So that they would get up on the balconies, they would jump up against the window, or if the sliding glass door was open, they would get into the people's rooms. Well, I was in one room, a friend of mine was in the next room. His sliding glass door was open. He came out of the shower and there was monkeys in his room. And of course, they were angry and upset because they wanted the fruit, right? And monkeys can be pretty aggressive sometimes. They can jump on you and bite you and scratch you and do all those things. My sliding glass door was closed and they would jump up against the window. Well, what does this have to do with the monkey mind? Well, one of the things that I realized that as long as I kept putting bananas out there for the monkeys in my mind, they would keep coming, right? And if I took that bowl away and not have the monkeys and the apples and all the other fruit there, they're just going to go to the next door.
You know,
They're
you
going to go to the next
simplified
door.
the power of
So
meditation. This is a
I
really
stopped putting it out.
simplified power of
Pardon
meditation.
me?
You don't need any other definition. Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. No, and I meditate daily, and um, but it's just like I've really learned that I was attracting them rather than repelling them. You know, So I can't say that my mind is perfectly calm all the time. I don't know if any of our minds are. I will say that I'm known as the calm one, the relaxed one, the grounding one, and
And it
regardless
is
of
so
what's going on
needed
in the
because
situation.
stress is the number one killer in um, anyone's life, because people, oh, the statistics says no cancer, heart disease, and no, the stress enhances any disease you have in your body. And if you calm your mind, you are going to reduce your stress. It is so important. It is so important. And
Yeah.
you learn a really great thing from great lesson from monkeys. The lesson which I learned from monkeys was not that great. Means we were in Bali, and there were lots of monkeys in Bali, and the monkeys were capturing. They were actually getting people's glasses, and they were trying to eat those glasses, and if they couldn't eat, they were just breaking those glasses. And we saw that, me, my daughter, my husband, we all were, and even my family, my brother-in-law, co-sister, everyone was. We saw. I said, "Oh my goodness!" So the lesson I learned is not to wear glasses when monkeys are around. But the lesson which you learn is way more effective, and it can be really applicable. It's yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you mentioned about meditation, calming your mind, and all. But then, what is the difference between power and force? Because many times people use that
Ah,
interchangeably.
yes. Um, Ri- David Hawkins wrote a book called Power versus Force many years ago. If if you're listening and you haven't read that book, I would really encourage you to read the book. So even within the context of yoga, I practice yoga. If I'm going into a asana posture, even something like is say I'm going to use a triangle as an example. Now, not everybody that's listening may do yoga, but I think you can still understand this. If I try to force myself into this asana or this posture, or anyone for that matter, it's going to hurt. I might break a bone, I might pull something, whatever. So forcing myself into that. At the same time, if I use power and I edge myself in there with a relaxed mind, then I'm going to be able to hold that posture according to my ability. Well, how does that apply in the rest of the world and the rest of our lives? Let's take kids. Often kids will act up. So we can say something like, if you do this, you're going to be punished, right? Using force, right? Or we might be able to say, okay, you're struggling right now. How can I help you? So you're using power. And then they tend to become more relaxed and more willing and open to shift their behavior. And I can go on, and I mean, there's so many examples to this, Sue, but so often we force. I mean, even in martial arts, a true martial artist uses the force that's coming at them as a way of power. They're moving, they're using that force that their opponent is trying to impose upon them in a way that they can then use that in the power to disable them, so to speak,
This
without
is a
even
great
hurting them.
definition about power and force, because
Again,
till now, the impression I had about power and force means basically once you have power, you can force anybody to do anything. So that definition is gone.
well, and to even look at your surgery or my surgery. To me, the surgeons were saying, we have to do this or else. And it was like trying to force this event on me that for some reason I knew wasn't going to work. And I didn't know anything about anything, at that time. I know a little bit about anything now, not much more, but a little bit more. But instead of using force, it was use the power. Don't worry about it. Just get up and start walking, you know? And my yoga teacher from Kolkata, he later said the same thing. Michael, don't worry about it. Forget about it. Just do your yoga. I was so caught up in my mind, Sue, that I didn't want to stop worrying about it. I didn't want to forget about it. I needed to hold it on because it was my identity. The moment I started listening to him, everything changed. 12 years of pain was totally gone. Gone. Just because I shifted my mind from that worry, that fear, that holding on to, this health condition I had, to letting it go,
Yeah,
forgetting
and that
about
is
it,
what
just
it
doing
happens.
my life,
Sometimes you tell,
right?
forget about it, don't
Just
even
shift.
remember, then you try to remember it more and more. Yeah, that is how the mind works. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I want to know
Yes.
more about
Yeah.
your books, because you have written 4 books. So I want to know more about journey, because many of our audiences, means basically, they would be interested in the writing and publishing book, and uh, let alone 4-time bestseller. It is not easy.
Yep.
Okay, so I want to know your book writing journey.
Yep. Yep. Well, my first book, Falling Down, Getting Up, was the result of people, continuing to say, you need to write your book. You need to write this book. You need to write this book. And finally, after 12 years of that or so, I made a commitment and I wrote it in 79 days. I made a 90-day commitment. I'd go to the coffee shop every morning for an hour and sit there and write. I just made that commitment. And by breaking it into these pieces, I had a book at the end of 79 days, my draft manuscript. And then, I had it edited and such. So my first book, Falling Down, Getting Up, was my journey of going through these various situations that I had found myself in and what I did to get through it. My next book was a book called Expert Success Solutions. I was a contributing author. I was invited to be part of this book, and I wrote a chapter really about seeing things in a different way, because I believe sometimes we get stuck in certain ways of thinking, and by opening up and seeing something maybe a little bit different, it will just unfold for us, whatever it might be. My third book, I've done a fair amount of podcasting, and a gentleman named Alex Sanfilippo, which owns Podmatch, said, "Why don't you be part of this book that we're writing on being a podcast guest?" So it's podcast mastery for guests, how to be a great podcast guest. And then my last one is a book called Within. And this comes back to essentially everything that we're talking about is the answers that we have are really within. Now, because I'm also a yoga teacher, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a yoga teacher, I do all sorts of things, right? Is that I invited yoga teachers from all over the world that I know to contribute to this book and their stories of what happened to them and how they found something new as a result of their practice. So each one of those books were a *1 best-selling book. Now, I'm going to let something out. I mentioned this briefly before our call, Sue, that I just started another book called Trails Are for Tourists. And I'll tell you where this came from. I don't like hiking on trails. I like hiking off trail. So a friend of mine and I, we were up in the mountains. I live at 3,700 feet in Oregon on the east slope of the Cascades. And we go out all the time and just go, oh, let's go up that ridge. Let's go there. Let's go there. And we just decide where we're going to go. And we were laughing one day. There's a fair amount of tourists in our area. And for better or worse, we were laughing and saying, isn't it great that trails are for tourists and we can just go wherever we want, right? So it popped in my mind. And even at the moment, it was about a year and a half ago, I thought, this is a great book, right? And it's really a book about really how to find your path, not to follow somebody else's path, but to follow your own path, create what you want in your life. I work for a publishing company now, Morgan James Publishing. I talked to our publisher and I said, this was about a year ago. I said, what do you think? And he says, yes, Beautiful. Let's do it. So I'm now doing it. It will be done, the manuscript, in about 90 days, and I'm looking at releasing it at the end of this year. And I'm super jazzed about it, about this idea that, again, that we can find our own way if we listen within. Yes, all the other things are really good and other paths are good. But one of the things I found too about paths, especially in some of our paths here in Central Oregon, is many of them get really crowded and really busy. And, I don't like to necessarily be in crowded, busy trails. I want to find my own way. The other thing I found, and then I'll stop here, Sue, is that when you go off trail, you find and see things that aren't visible from the trail. So new ideas, new thoughts, new awarenesses. It's totally different recognition
Yeah,
of
actually, I
what's in
was
our
making
environment.
notes when you were talking. So I want to actually address many points you mentioned. First of all, falling down, getting up, and that is so important because you said the failure is not real failure. And afterwards means basically many people think just once they did something wrong, that means they are a total failure and then they stop trying. But as far as you are living, your heart is going to
Yeah,
go like this,
yeah,
and then same your life is also going to go like this. If it is straight line, that means you are gone, right? Second
yeah,
thing, you mentioned about
yep,
the
yep,
podcasting book, but I want to know about your new podcast coming up. Third thing, I want to mention that yoga, you are a yoga teacher, and the yoga runs in my family, means we are, yeah, yoga certified. So next time you have any yoga retreat, hey, we would like to come and join. Then also you mentioned about the trails, and this
thank you.
is what was always happening. Me and my husband, we used to go on actually hiking, and the it was a really long route, and coming back we would get lost. But every time we got lost, actually we discovered more beautiful places, and that was off trail, but it was really amazing. That really gave us a different perspective. And fifth thing I wanted to mention about book writing,
Yeah,
because I'm getting invitations from people that finish your book in one day, finish your book in half day, and that is clearly with AI. So, what is your opinion? So, I want to know about, yeah, I mentioned too many
yeah.
points here because I got all these points from your talk. So, maybe you can address one at a time.
So let's address the AI and book then. Um, you know, even for publishers, we had a long conversation, our team the other day about AI and publishing. It's evolving. It's changing. There's copyright issues with most AI products, chat or Claude or some of them that pulls information from other sources that may or may not have copyrights attached to them. So a publisher does not want to write a book that's AI generated because they don't know what's in it and there could be some legal ramifications. Well, there are some newer AI tools that are coming out for book writing that are ethical AI and they're self contained, so they don't draw information from outside sources. They're only using that self contained information that is put into that container, right? So we're going to see more of that coming along. And I'll just add too that, you know, when I help authors and, I help publishing and all that, we use AI, but we use AI, say for even my book, Sue, I did an outline and I went in and I created my outline in AI for the book and I told it what I wanted to do and it laid it all out. Now I'm going back and writing everything that I laid out, right? Each one of the chapters, the topics and the subtopics within each one of those chapters, I will now write out, right? By hand on my own. You know, using AI for marketing and all those other types of things is wonderful. The publishing world is not going to accept
Thank
books
you.
that are AI written at this time.
Yeah, so
It's just the way it
no,
is.
no, go ahead. Sorry.
And when you do, yeah,
No,
go ahead. Um, I was going to say it's probably going to happen, especially with some of these self-contained products that will be coming out on the market that are only using the information that
I
you're
would like
putting
to
in.
know
And
more
there's
about the
people that are
ethical
starting
AI,
to use
and
that.
yeah, means yeah, maybe we can discuss about that later on. Yep, and about your new podcast. Yeah,
Sure.
tell us about your new podcast.
Well,
Okay.
well, I don't really have a new podcast, but I actually do. Maybe you're you're saying something that I should look at, because one of the things that I have written down for my new book, because I have had a um, podcast in the past. It's called Falling Up Secrets. And this new book, Trails for Tourists, when I laid out everything that I want to do around it, one of it was creating a new show. So I may be doing that in the process of releasing this book, because I love
Oh
stories, and
yeah, I would
I
love
would
to be.
love
I
to
will be
have you
honored.
on
Yeah,
it,
surely,
Sue.
no doubt about it.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Just to talk about all the great work you're doing, and the trail that you're creating on
You
your own.
mentioned
You know,
that everyone has a
yeah.
story, but you also mentioned that everyone can be an
Mhm.
entrepreneur, and that is really, I don't know, that is very polarizing, because there are some people, they are so happy with their job and they cannot even think of entrepreneurship. So, will you please elaborate about that?
Well, I think even if you have a job, you're an entrepreneur. And the reason I think that, and I haven't always thought that, but think about the process of getting a job. You've got to sit down, you've got to create a resume, you got to put all the right words in the right place. You have to go pitch AR about your qualifications, and then you might have to talk to somebody else from HR, you might have to talk to a boss. And the whole time you're essentially selling yourself and your skills. Well, what does an entrepreneur do? They sell themselves and their skills as a way, a good entrepreneur, as a way to help their customer, their client, accomplish whatever it is they want to accomplish. So if I'm going out for a job, and I haven't had a job since I walked out of my last job almost 40 years ago, um, but it was the best job I ever had. So I want to dispel that myth that even if you have a job, you're still an entrepreneur. You
Yeah.
are an entrepreneur.
Same is
Just the sheer fact of getting that
Same is
job. You
applicable
have
even
the
for the
skills of an
housewives,
entrepreneur.
because it takes a lot of planning. It takes a lot of planning for everything. And it's not easy, because I remember I had taken a break from my job and career when my kids were small. And once I was really frustrated, and I was mentioning to my friend that I really feel that I'm not doing anything with my life. And then she says, who says so? She says, everything means me. When bringing up good citizens is also a good work. Plus, when you're planning everything in your house, everything, it takes lot of planning and organization, and there's so many things involved. So even if you think, oh, I'm just a housewife, no, you are doing lots of things. Only thing, you are not giving yourself some credit. And so I really agree with your point. Yeah, everyone is an entrepreneur. So we are almost actually coming to end of our podcast. But if you want to give any parting message, if I didn't cover any particular point which you wanted to be covered, yeah, please feel free to mention that over here. Right?
Well, so, Sue, I have a feeling we could probably sit here and talk all day long. It's just like it's a pleasure to be on your show. And again, thank you for inviting me on your show. And for all the listeners, be sure to check out all the episodes and everything she's doing. As I go through what you're doing, it's phenomenal. Everything that you're offering and giving, it's like um, instead of a go-getter, it's like being a
Oh
go-giver.
yeah,
And there's even a
yeah.
book called the Go-Giver, right? And that's what I see you as, Sue. As far as if any of the listeners want to reach out directly to me, the best place to go is just to my website, michaelbharris.com. And I've got a couple of other sites, but you'll be able to connect with me social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, etc. from that. And I will have a link there with pretty quick. Well, by the time you hear this, there will be a link on that page to my new book. So you'll be able to find out about that too. Trails are for tourists. And I'm just really excited because
Mm-hmm.
I do believe we all have stories, and entrepreneurs have stories, and housewives, mothers have stories. I'm in awe of mothers and housewives. I mean, I really have always been in awe, and it's just like because of the giving that you do. And I'll mention one brief thing that my mother taught me as a kid. I'd be out playing in the neighborhood, and like there'd be a bully in the neighborhood or something. I'd come up to the back door, all scared, and mom would say, Michael, just breathe, take a breath, and that intuitive wisdom that's there. And I think as entrepreneurs too, sometimes we just need to take a breath. Just pause for a moment, take a breath. One breath can change
Thank you,
everything.
thank you for
One
your
breath.
great wisdom, and thanks for blessing our audience, our family. Totally appreciate. It's really my honor and privilege to interview you, and I see we collaborating in future because I think I'll be needing lots of your help for my future projects. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sue.
Hey, thanks for joining us. We are blessed to have you as part of our community, and whatever way we can help you, serve you, let us know. Please subscribe and let us know how we can help you, what resources you want. We have lots of free resources and also free collaboration joint venture groups you can join and explode your business, because most solopreneurs quit their business before they launch their first products, and I don't want that to happen to you. And that's why we have special launch service where you can monetize your digitals and become profitable as fast as within 7 days. And if you want to scale your business, join our membership New Beginning Success Collaboration, where we'll provide you MRR and PLR products and collaborations so that you can scale your business with ease and effortlessly. And hey, if you want to sell your digitals all over the world, yes, we will provide you affiliates more than 200 countries. So everything is possible. Just live your dream, follow your dream, and whichever way we can help you, do let us know. Thank you and God bless you.